Hi, Nathan.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. So here we are, number two. We're talking all things change and how do we change. And what I'd like to discuss with you is when we go through change and when I'm training organizations, we look at how environments and how people and places and times and things, how our environments impact us over time and who we become who we are because of those environments. However, you have had interesting issues to deal with over the last few years, and you've gone through change. We talked in the first one about we are children, we move into teenagehood, and difficult, challenging times to the young adults, and sometimes into parenthood. And change happens to us. So, would you like to describe to us your change that you've gone through, both from on a healing journey as well as you as a young man?
How long have we got? Longer than 20 minutes.
No.
Mm. So my life feels like it's forever changing, which is a good thing. And I'm quite comfortable with change because, like you said, change is inevitable. We can either accept that or not. But on a physical side and the healing change, it's been 13 years of struggle. And I use the word carefully, suffering, both out of my control, pain, surgery, also the suffering that we create within through our thoughts. And they tend to be more damaging because they can happen 70,000 times a day and can be
Hmm.
awkward. Um, so like the physical change has been huge. So I've had a bone tumor. We didn't really go into it too much in detail in the last one. So I've had a bone tumor in the pelvis that was diagnosed in 2013. It's like a
Hmm.
small size, started with groin pain, had an MRI. It delivered, and it showed that there was a tumor. I had a surgery 2 months after that just to remove it. So they almost scraped it out. And then they said, okay, good to go. No further treatment required. We'll watch and wait, see what happens. There is a chance that it might come back. It started to come back in 2016, grew steadily up to 2018. And then first half of 2018, there was like a significant growth. I think it grew over 30% or so. I actually wasn't getting any physical pain at this point, which was quite strange to then be told that actually we need to do a fairly big surgery to prevent, because where it was in the right side of my tumor, sitting behind the hip socket. So it was quite invasive. So I had that surgery in 2018. Only took me 3 or 4 months to recover. And then it steadily grew again. Obviously, this is a very condensed story. In 2022, to the point where I needed significant surgery to remove 75% of the right side of my pelvis, including my hip socket. And because the tumor was one growing, one starting to cause me a lot of pain, it was affecting my hip joint, it was affecting my movement, function, pain, symptoms. So that was January the 10th, 2022, I had that surgery. And the healing almost started prior to that. The lead up to it, the surgery, my healing started. Being aware that I was unhappy
Hmm.
internally, being very aware that things needed to change. And what I mean by things in my external environment. So things like I didn't want to drink anymore, stop having sugar-free drinks,
Hmm.
alcohol-free drinks, be more conscious of diet, get out in nature more. I've always been active through basketball and resistance training. So that's always been my go-to. But
Hmm.
those changes in my external environment were the main things that I probably implemented 6 months before the surgery, knowing
Hmm.
that I was going to have the surgery. But that wasn't the reason why I did the change. It just felt like the time was ready. And I had
Hmm.
been introduced to Joe Dispenza's work by a good friend that I met at a seminar. So my understanding of the work wasn't too great. This was more, I guess, my intuition, that innate feeling of, okay, I need to change. So they were the things that I started to implement. And then I had the surgery in 2022 and then continued those. threads of change, dove deeper into awareness, consciousness, as well as Joe Dispenza's work, which obviously ties into that. And then the change has continued to 2026. Yet in that window, it spread to my lungs. I've had a reoccurrence. So part of me, or someone would say, well, this work clearly isn't working because you're still expressing this physical disease, which is sometimes I think that as well. I'm like, what is the point? All this is happening. Things happen for a reason, whatever your beliefs are. And again, if we refer back to the first video of suppressed emotions, maybe I haven't cleared out or figured out what I need to figure out. So my body is still in that state physically, yet spiritually, emotionally and mentally, I'm very different to 2022. Like I'm a complete different person.
You are. But what I want to get out of you now, and that's a really good explanation of what has happened to you, this change that happened to you. Something else has happened to you between 2022 and 2026. What was that?
I am a father.
So tell us a little bit about your journey as a human, moving through your own childhood, teenage years to young man, to becoming a father. Becoming a father, what have you seen over the last, is it 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years. It's been a very good mirror to what life is. When you see life through a child's eye, the innocence, the presence, the wonder, the awe, curiosity. I feel it deeply because I feel that I didn't have that. I feel that through experiences, through no fault of my own, as I got older and I was more aware, maybe I had some blame to play, but I feel that it's a very good mirror of what life is. Even as an adult, we lose that sense of presence, joy, and again, curiosity because of life stresses, both internally, the ones we create in our brain, between our ears, but also the responsibilities that we have as adults. So bills, car, mortgage, debt, etc. So it's helped me be more compassionate to myself and others. It's helped me to be more patient with myself and others. And it's also reminded me, again, what it is to be human, like human being, and then a human doing.
What do you think you've been able to give your son because of that? Give us examples of little moments.
Just unconditional love, anyway, but just I give him my all, and I make sure that this past 2 years personally has been extremely difficult. Biopsies, reoccurrences, pain, lack of sleep. I've made sure that as a 2-year-old, his nervous system is like a sponge to everything around him. So it's my job to not allow him to soak in my problems that then he develops as he gets older. And that isn't me suppressing how I'm feeling. It's my responsibility to, okay, I now have to be in the present moment and forget all of that, which has been a gift because my life could get consuming, and it does sometimes. But in that moment when I'm with him, reading a book, rocking him to sleep to bed, watching him go crazy, and when he sees birds in the garden, it just brings you into that present moment, and that's all we've really got. And we can do it without children. I'm not saying you need a child to do it. Being a parent is extremely difficult the best of times, let alone when you're dealing with struggles. So for any parents going out there are showing up as their best self and are going through mental health issues, physical health issues, it's almost superhuman. And it makes me appreciate my mum being a single parent and what she's done as well. So my level of compassion and patience towards her has also changed. It's changed every relationship, really. You see the world through a different lens with definitely more compassion.
I think what's key for people watching this today or tonight or whatever time of day they're watching this, or in the middle of the night sometimes, you shared with me before a little moment in time where you held his hand, or he was holding his mum's hand, and you had a moment. What did your sister say to you? What did you have in that moment? What did she say to you?
It was at the weekend. My mum was holding my son's hand, walking away. And just as of late, when I see him, I've really seen myself, like the innocence, the pure love, and like the world hasn't yet had a chance to corrupt or change. It just made me one appreciate my mum's journey, and then I sent a voice note to my sister explaining what I've just seen, and she messaged saying, "As much as you love your son, is as much as my sister and my mum love me."
Mm.
And I needed to hear that in that moment, because I think we can all relate, but I speak for myself, that it's very difficult to love ourselves for whatever reason. And I think that's one thing that's really held me back in my journey of healing, transformation. But then I felt there was a shift over the weekend,
Mm.
seeing that with my mum and what my sister.
I think it's important that people hear you and the journey you're going through, because I think when you play this back and when they play this back, is that you are still measured by your survival because of the journey you're going on to survive and thrive. And yet when we get those moments out of you where you see the energy of love and compassion, your face lights up. And there's this dawn of realization that those energies do exist. And it's tuning in to something that fills you. Now, we know from research in neuroscience and the research in the mind is that the mind doesn't know the difference between perception and reality. And over time, we create a story about our reality because it's from the eyes of you. The reality is people are looking at it with their own eyes from a different perspective and see a different moment in time. And that the beauty you have is that you know why you want to change. You know how to change. And I think we talked about this last time, is when is the right time? And I want to ask you the question about when we change, we have to think greater than our environment, the people and places and things around us, because they hold us to their accountability. And it's how they see us that we stay in that space, because it's how they see us, not how we see ourselves. We have to think greater than our body. Our bodies will, and as you know, pull you back and hold you in a place that you don't want to be. And time, we have to think greater than time. Most of the time, we haven't got enough time because, like you alluded to, being a parent of a small child and working and just being human is tough. And a lot of people watching this will find that tough. And we have to think greater than all of that because we're in survival. It is commonly known that we turn to everything outside of ourselves to survive. Danger is coming to us. The fight or flight mechanism kicks in and we're in survival mode. And time doesn't exist because we're in the moment. However, there isn't enough time to get away from it. However, when we can sit, and you've already mentioned this about being present in that moment, we no longer have to think greater than the environment, body, and time. We're already greater than it because we've gone inside and we've created an internal journey that can and is more real than what we remember. And it's how can you use that thinking greater than the environment, body, and time, because that's survival. When we thrive, we don't need to worry about time. The body won't stop us and nobody around us will change us, because when we go within, we are present and we change, and we can change in a heartbeat. So do you want to tell us a little bit about thinking greater than that environment, your body and time? How do you see that going forward rather than going back?
I'm not sure. Not sure.
You've alluded to part of it. It's a difficult question to answer. So to think greater than your environment, body, and time going forward would require you to be conscious of what you say, how you feel, and how you act. What are you doing on that journey? Because I think you've already shown us that you are very acutely aware of making sure your son grows up with a regulated nervous system, not a dysregulated one. What are you doing to help yourself and obviously help him at the same time?
So just being more aware of my thoughts, basically, is the main thing. And that is through like practices such as mental rehearsal meditation, which I've done. I probably started maybe during that period, 2020. And when I first met you, I started kind of then after I met Grant. Not really knowing, but like I said, we all start somewhere. And that was my intro. So I used to do these long meditations, not really know what I was doing, but I felt good. So I just did it. That said, I did have a crazy experience, which we'll talk about at a later date. That was because I was out of the way of myself. I'm very good at being in my analytical mind. I'm an own thinker for sure, which maybe lots of us are. So the key is to not run on autopilot, because we have this, I say, a blueprint of what we do day to day is very similar. As you know, after 35, everything that we do is done subconsciously, run 95%, because it's all a habit. We do things the same. We drive to work the same way, even though there's 5 routes. We brush our teeth with the right hand because we're right-handed rather than challenges with the left. Get out of the bed the same way, make or don't make the bed. All these things, go to the same shop on your lunch, get the same lunch. So trying to be aware of that and consciously acting. If I want to go the same way to work, I'll go the same way to work because I consciously want to. But you have to, there's a fine line with that, because subconscious mind can play into that and go, are you sure? Are you sure you want to do that? So just being the gatekeeper of your thoughts. I know we can't gatekeep 70,000 thoughts, but even if you just catch a few, it's enough to change that unconscious rhythm, just to go, okay, we have a choice, rather than not think we have a choice because it's so ingrained in us. So day to day, especially the past year, I'm more conscious of my thoughts, which then changes how I act, how I behave. I'm not perfect, I'm human. But then when I do something that I might not want to do, it's then owning up to that accountability and living life with integrity, which is one of the main things I want to show my son, is that like we're human, we make mistakes. What do we do after we make a mistake? Do we snowball and then ruin everyone's life in your environment and then snowball for 7 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever? Or do you go, okay, I could have done better there. And that's what I've tried to do now. Even we might not even understand that, but if I do something, I talk to him a certain way, that actually I take a moment and think, maybe I could have worded that a more effective and efficient way with more love and compassion. And then you've got the meditation, which is where you are removing yourself from the environment and coming within, which makes it easier than when you are out in the environment to implement the tools of change. And that mental rehearsal, meditation, or practice cultivating self-awareness and then who you're talking to is where you open up the doors to possibility and change, because you become in that present moment. So you're not worried about the future. You're not stressing about the past, and you are just there. And that is a definition of just being, and we're human beings. And that changes your biology, your nervous system, your subconscious, your conscious. And then depending on what you're doing in that state, and then start to change who you are through like the properties of neuroplasticity, like you said. So they're the main.
I think anyone who's watching is going to know that you know your stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, what I'm keen to identifying for people to understand is knowing and doing are 2 different things. You, at the first part of this answer to my question was, you said that when we first met, you'd had these crazy moments where you'd been present and you were no longer using your analytical mind, and you had these meditations that had just blew your mind. And now you can see where your analytical mind clashes with that awareness. So I want people to take away from this is that you can see by watching this podcast and rewatching it, how when someone asks you a question, you talked about the pause is really important. And I talk about the power is in the pause, that listen to the answers and listen to that person. And then for you to listen to who you are and how much emphasis you put on survival and how much emphasis you put on to thrive. You've had your moments of absolute genius and you've been able to thrive in the environment that you find yourself in. But more often than not, we analyze the environment. The body will stop us and we never have enough time. So I want people to think about moving from survival to thriving. I really appreciate you being honest again, Nathan. And I can't wait to talk to you next week.
See you then.